No one remembers the exact day hunger arrived in the mountains of Ethiopia. It did not come with thunder or warning. It came quietly, like dust settling on broken dreams. In a small hillside village, where the land had cracked like wounded skin, lived a woman named Hanna. Her home was made of mud and weak wooden sticks, but even those walls struggled to stand against the wind. Inside that fragile shelter lay her entire world, her 8-year-old son, Ibrahim. Every morning before the sun fully rose, Hanna would wake up to the sound of Ibrahim coughing softly. His body was thin, far too thin for a child his age. His eyes, once full of curiosity, now carried the tiredness of someone who had seen too much suffering too early. Hunger was no longer just an empty stomach. It was a constant pain, a burning ache that prayer alone could not silence. "Ibrahim," Hanna whispered one morning, touching his forehead. It was warm, too warm. "I'm okay, Mama," he lied gently, forcing a small smile. "I'll be strong today." Strength. That word had lost its meaning here. Ethiopia was beautiful from afar. Ancient lands, proud mountains, deep history. But in villages like this, beauty did not fill empty bowls. Drought had stolen the crops. Poverty had stolen hope. And silence had stolen help. Hanna tied her worn scarf tightly and helped Ibrahim stand. Together they began their long walk to the water point, miles away. Every step felt heavier than the last. The sun climbed higher, showing no mercy. Halfway there, Ibrahim stopped. "Mama, can we rest?" he asked, his voice trembling. Hanna knelt beside him, her heart racing with fear. She remembered the clinic, the only one nearby, now closed, its door locked with a rusted chain. A sign still hung there, mocking every mother. No medicine available. That was when fear turned into desperation. Hanna held Ibrahim close, rocking him gently. She whispered prayers she had learned as a child, prayers passed down through generations, of women who had also begged the sky for mercy. But the sky remained silent. As the wind passed through the dry grass, Hanna realized something painful. In this land, hunger spoke louder than prayer, and this was only the beginning. By the time Hanna returned home, the sun was already sinking behind the mountains, leaving the sky painted in tired shades of orange and gray. Ibrahim leaned heavily against her, his small body shaking with each step. His breathing was uneven, shallow, as if even air had become a burden. Inside the hut, Hanna laid him down on the thin mat they shared. She dipped her fingers into the last cup of water and gently touched his cracked lips. He opened his eyes slowly. "Mama," he whispered, "did we bring food?" Hanna swallowed hard. "No, my son. But tomorrow will be better." She had repeated that lie so many times that it no longer hurt her mouth, only her heart. Outside, the village was quiet, not peaceful, quiet in the way pain silences people. Every home carried the same story. Every mother fought the same invisible enemy. Hanna stepped out, desperation burning inside her. She went from door to door, begging softly, humbly. Not for herself, never for herself, but for her child. One woman shook her head with tears in her eyes. Another handed her a handful of dry grains, apologizing as if it were a crime to give so little. Hanna thanked them all. Back inside, she boiled the grains until they almost disappeared in the water. The thin soup barely smelled of food, but she carried it to Ibrahim as if it were a feast. "Eat slowly," she said, forcing a smile. Ibrahim took a few weak sips, then stopped. His head fell back onto the mat. "Mama, will I go to school someday?" he asked suddenly. The question hit her harder than hunger ever had. "Yes," she replied quickly. "You will learn. You will grow strong. You will help people." He smiled faintly. "I want to help you first." Hanna turned away so he wouldn't see her tears. That night, Ibrahim's fever worsened. Hanna pressed her palms against his chest, feeling his heart race like it was running away from her. She sang old songs, songs her mother once sang during hard nights, songs about hope, songs about survival. But hope felt fragile here. As darkness wrapped the village, Hanna realized a terrifying truth. Love alone could not save her child. The world demanded more: medicine, food, care, things this land no longer had. She held Ibrahim tighter, whispering promises she prayed she wouldn't break. Outside, the wind carried dust across the empty fields. Inside, a mother fought the world with nothing but her hands, and the world did not seem ready to lose. The morning came without warmth. Hanna woke to an unfamiliar silence. Ibrahim was no longer coughing. For a brief, terrifying moment, her heart stopped. She placed her ear against his chest and felt a faint, fragile heartbeat. Slow, struggling but still there. "Thank God," she whispered, though fear still wrapped tightly around her. Ibrahim's fever had not broken. His skin burned, yet his hands were cold. Hanna knew what that meant. The child did not need prayers anymore. He needed medicine. With shaking resolve, she lifted him onto her back, tying him with a worn cloth. Each step toward the clinic felt heavier than the last, but she did not stop. Not when her legs screamed. Not when the sun rose high and merciless. The clinic stood at the edge of the village, a small, concrete building that once represented hope. Its walls were cracked now, paint peeling like forgotten promises. Hanna reached the door, her breath ragged, her heart pounding. The door was locked. She knocked. Once, twice, harder. "Please," she cried, her voice breaking. "My child is dying." No answer. She pressed her forehead against the cold metal door. A memory surfaced, years ago, when nurses still worked here, when mothers lined up holding children who would later run and laugh again. Those days were gone. A man passing by stopped and looked at her helplessly. "There is no medicine," he said quietly. The workers left weeks ago. Hanna's knees gave way. She slid down the door, holding Ibrahim close. His breathing was shallow now, barely touching the air. His lips moved. "Mama, am I bad?" he whispered. "No," she said quickly, cupping his face. "You are good. You are very good." He closed his eyes. Hanna screamed then, not loudly but from somewhere deep inside her chest. A scream that carried years of hunger, neglect, and forgotten lives. The clinic door never opened. As the sun began its slow descent, Hanna walked back home. Each step felt like walking away from hope itself. Ibrahim no longer stirred. His head rested against her shoulder, too still. Inside the hut, she laid him down carefully. She watched his chest rise and fall, slower now, weaker. She held his hand all night, and as darkness covered the mountains, Hanna understood the cruel lesson of her land. Survival was not about strength, it was about access, and access had been taken away. Night fell slowly over the Ethiopian mountains, as if even darkness was afraid to arrive. The wind whispered through the dry grass, carrying the smell of dust and loss. Inside the small hut, Hanna sat motionless, her back against the mud wall, her son lying in her arms. Ibrahim's breathing had changed. Each breath came late, shallow, uncertain, like the world was slowly letting him go. Hanna pressed her palm against his chest, counting silently. 1, 2, 3. She stopped counting when the numbers began to feel like a farewell. "Stay with me," she whispered, her lips close to his forehead. "Just a little longer." Her voice trembled, but Ibrahim did not respond. His eyes were half open, staring at something Hanna could not see. Hanna remembered the day he was born, how he cried loudly, how she laughed through tears, how she promised him a better life than hers. That promise now lay broken between her hands. She began to pray again, not loudly, not desperately, but softly, like a tired soul speaking its last truth. "God, if you are watching, please see him. He is just a child." The hut offered no answer. Hours passed, or maybe seconds. Time had lost its meaning. Ibrahim's fingers twitched slightly, then went still. His head leaned against Hanna's chest. She felt it then. The silence, no breath, no movement. For a long moment, Hanna did not react. She rocked him gently, as if he were only asleep. "Wake up," she said quietly. "The sun will rise soon." But the sun was no longer meant for him. A sound escaped her throat. Not a cry, not a scream, something broken, something human. She held Ibrahim tighter, pressing her face into his hair, breathing him in as if she could keep him alive that way. Outside, the stars shone indifferently. Morning came. Neighbors gathered quietly. No one asked questions. Everyone already knew the answers. They helped Hanna prepare a small grave on the hillside, under a lonely tree. Hanna placed Ibrahim into the earth with her own hands. As the soil covered him, a truth settled deep inside her heart. Her child did not die because he was weak. He died because the world was absent. And somewhere far away, life continued as if nothing had happened. The village did not change after Ibrahim's death. The sun still rose over the mountains. The wind still carried dust through the cracked fields. Children still walked barefoot across dry earth. Life moved forward, but something inside Hanna had stopped. She woke up the next morning out of habit. Her arms reached for Ibrahim before her mind remembered the truth. When her hands found only empty air, a sharp pain cut through her chest. The mat beside her was cold. Hanna sat up slowly. The hut felt larger now, emptier. Every corner whispered his name. The small cup he used, the torn cloth he slept under. The silence was louder than any cry. She stepped outside. Women passed by, offering quiet nods of sympathy. No one spoke much. In this village, grief did not need words. It was shared. Hanna returned to the water path alone. For the first time, no small footsteps followed her. No voice asked questions. The road felt endless. At the water point, she watched other mothers washing pots, lifting heavy containers, children clinging to their legs. Her chest tightened. She turned away quickly. That evening, she sat near Ibrahim's grave. The soil was still fresh. She placed a small stone at its head, a simple marker, because nothing else was available. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I tried." The wind answered with silence. Days passed, then weeks. Hanna stopped crying, not because the pain had healed, but because tears no longer came. She began helping other mothers. She shared what little knowledge she had. She warned them when fever came. She told them to leave early, to beg, to fight. "Do not wait," she said. Waiting costs lives. Her words carried the weight of loss. People began to listen. Hanna's grief slowly transformed into something else. Not hope, but purpose. She could not save her son, but maybe she could save another. And in that realization lay the cruelest lesson of all. One child's death had to teach the world what care should have taught long ago. Months passed in the Ethiopian mountains, but Hanna's life never returned to what it had been. The village carried on, and so did she. A shadow of herself, yet strangely stronger. The pain of Ibrahim's absence was an unshakable weight. Pressing on her chest with every breath, Hanna could no longer sleep without dreaming of him. Sometimes she imagined his laughter, sometimes the soft sound of his tiny footsteps chasing after her across the fields. Each memory was both a wound and a reminder that love could survive even after loss. But grief had taught her something profound. Survival alone was not enough. She began to help other children, guiding mothers on how to prevent sickness, sharing the knowledge she had gained in her struggles. She fetched clean water when she could, even when it meant walking twice the distance, and carried advice from one hut to another like precious gold. The village noticed. Slowly they began to change, not because the world had given them anything, but because Hanna had decided to give what little she could. A mother who had lost everything was teaching others how to survive. One evening, Hanna stood near Ibrahim's grave. The sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky with the same colors it had the day he died. She whispered a prayer. "Your life was brief, my son, but your story will carry on. If I can save one child because of you, then your spirit lives." A gentle wind stirred the dry grass. It felt as if the mountains themselves were listening. Hanna realized that while she could not undo the past, she could shape the future for the children of the village, for those who had no voice, for those still struggling under the relentless sun. And in that, a subtle hope began to grow. Ibrahim's death had not been in vain. His memory had become a call to action, a legacy of love in a world that too often looked the other way. Hanna's hands, once trembling and weak, were now the hands of a teacher, a guide, a quiet hero in a land that rarely praised its heroes. She walked home that night, carrying a small bundle of clean water and a few grains of food for a child who was still hungry. Every step reminded her of Ibrahim, of what was lost, but also of what could still be given. And so, the Ethiopian mountains held both sorrow and courage, loss and hope in a delicate balance. Hanna's story, like Ibrahim's life, would remain a lesson that love and action, even in the face of unbearable grief, could light the darkest corners of the world.